Well, hello and welcome to Eurovision Spotlight. I haven't done one of these for about a year, and I think my last one actually was with my guest today, Kevin Sherwin. And Kevin is a freelance journalist who reports on Eurovision, and he hails from Aberdeen, Scotland, and he's been going to contests for, 28 years. Now, let's say good morning, first of all, to Kevin. It's beautiful here in Aberdeenshire. I'm 15 miles away from Aberdeen, and you live in Aberdeen, is that right?
Yes, well, I live 8 miles west of Aberdeen in a village called
beautiful.
Scooter.
It's a nice day today. We're sitting here with the T-shirts, I think. Let's talk about the hosting of Eurovision 2023. And it's turning into a bit of a contentious subject, I have to be honest with you. So to get things started, last week, the EBU released this statement, following objective analysis, the reference group, the ESC's governing body, has, with deep regret, concluded that given the current circumstances, the security and operational guarantees required for a broadcaster to host, organise and produce the Eurovision Song Contest under the ESC rules cannot be fulfilled by UAPVC, which is the Ukrainian broadcaster. The EBU would like to thank UAPVC for their wholehearted cooperation and commitment in exploring all scenarios in the weeks since Kalush Orchestra's win on the 14th of May in Turin, and share the sadness and disappointment that next year's contest cannot be held in Ukraine. As a result of this decision, in accordance with the rules and to ensure the continuity of the event, the EBU will now begin discussions with the BBC as this year's runner-up to potentially host the 2023 Eurovision Song Contest in the United Kingdom. Well, almost immediately, Oleksandr Tkachenko, Ukraine's culture minister, demanded a rethink from the EBU, and he was joined by previous winners Ruslana Jamala, as well as present winners Kalush Orchestra. And their argument was that hosting in Ukraine would show a strong sense of support against Russia's Vladimir Putin. Now, if I remember rightly, this was the same argument that was being said on the run-up to Turin with the Kalush Orchestra song Stefania, a song which in itself didn't win the Ukrainian national final, yet it garnered 439 points on the public televote at the grand final in Turin. And that equals an average of more than 11 points per country, and we're talking over 40 countries here. So now they're insisting, Kevin, as you know, on hosting the contest, which takes a year to prepare. So first off, Kevin, should Ukraine be hosting Eurovision 2023?
Right. Well, first of all, I've always said never bring politics into the Eurovision Song Contest. Unfortunately, the last 48 hours, it's been swamped with politics. Ukraine should not host the Eurovision Song Contest 2023. I think the bottom line is that nobody will get travel insurance to travel to the Ukraine anyway. So if they want to have it in an empty stadium with the artists on video, then yes, that's fine. They can do that. But the EBU just won't want to do that. They want to get back to a normal Eurovision Song Contest. I'm sorry for Ukraine. I'm sorry for what's happening in Ukraine. You've got to put that to one side and think of the reality here. There is no way that the Ukraine can stage the Eurovision Song Contest.
And the thing is, I totally agree with you on that. And I've got to be careful of what I'm going to say, because I'm actually getting quite annoyed about this whole topic, because I've been reading a lot of comments online, and some of them are actually from Ukrainian Eurovision fans, and naturally they're disappointed, but they're now beginning to get a little bit too carried away. And as you're saying, it's turning very political. I want to just play you this.
The Ukrainians won the Eurovision Song Contest. I know we had a fantastic entry. I know we came second, and I'd love it to be in this country. Of course I'd love it to be in this country. But the fact is, they won, and they deserve to have it. And I believe that they can have it, and I believe that they should have it. And I believe that Kiev or any other safe Ukrainian city would be a fantastic place to have it. And I very, very much hope that, is it the European Broadcasting Union? I hope the European Broadcasting Union will recognise that, because I don't think it's right. This thing's a year away. It's a year away. It's going to be fine by the time the Eurovision Song Contest comes round, and I hope that the Ukrainians get it, because they deserve it.
That was Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister. And I have to be honest with you, I can't stand this man, okay? And I'm going to be trying as fair as I possibly can, okay? Because I can't stand him and I've never liked him since before he was an MP. The worrying thing for me, he's now got himself involved and he is making a ridiculous statement that Ukraine should be hosting. It's a year away, he says. He had to get correction, what the EBU stands for. And he has just thrown in a big, huge, as far as I'm concerned, problem. Ukraine can't host a contest because it's a war zone. And then he comes out with a second statement, which I'm going to play now.
I think it's very important to go to Ukraine at a particularly critical time. The worry that we have is that a bit of Ukraine fatigue is starting to set in around the world. But when you got to understand, the Ukrainians are suffering terribly in the east of their country. Putin is continuing to commit appalling atrocities. When Ukraine fatigue is setting in, very important to show that we're with them for the long haul and we're giving them that strategic resilience that they need. I think that the crucial thing is to look at the problems that the Ukrainians have, and it would be a catastrophe if Putin won. It'd be a catastrophe if he was able to secure the land bridge, the cities in the south that he has, to hold the Donbass. That's what he wants. He wants to be able to say, we've got Melitopol, we've got Berdyansk, we've got Mariupol, got all that southern belt, we've got Kherson, and then close off the Donbass, and then he'd love nothing more than to say, well, let's freeze this conflict, let's have a ceasefire like we did back in 2014. For him, that would be a tremendous victory. And the anxiety of the UK and many other governments around the world is, look, that would be a disaster, because you'd have a situation in which Putin was able to consolidate his gains and then to launch another attack.
What's your view on his intervention?
Well, I'm probably the opposite of you, because I actually quite like Boris. So, yeah, I'm maybe a bit biased here. But I think, again, we use the word political. He's basically trying to gain some political votes. He obviously doesn't want to offend anybody in the world. And he's obviously wanting to be very chummy with the Ukrainians. He's probably looking further down the line that when the Ukrainians are looking for people to rebuild their country, we can send millions of United Kingdom builders and carpenters and electricians across there. So it's going to be good for the UK economy. And I think he's probably looking selfishly at that. But then the other thing is, we don't know what Boris's job is going to be in 6 months' time, because he's on, as we say in Scotland, a sugary nail anyway. So I don't know. I think basically he's just trying to say, look, I'm Boris Johnson. I'm nice. I don't fall out with anybody. But the bottom line is, it's got absolutely nothing to do with him anyway. It's to do with the European Broadcasting Union and the BBC, who have got the final say on yes or no.
But the problem is that the BBC, as you know, are being ravaged by Boris Johnson and Nadine Dorries, the culture secretary, or whatever her long title is. Do they have the funds to actually host a contest? And if they do need to borrow money, or if they're asking for Boris Johnson's government to help them out hosting it, is he going to be forthcoming? Because that statement suggested to me that he isn't going to step in and support.
Well, this is perhaps maybe then where Nicola Sturgeon and Scotland could come to the rescue. Because, okay, perhaps maybe the English government don't want to just support and pay the Eurovision Song Contest, but I'm quite sure the Scottish government will. And I'm quite sure that Nicola will find money somewhere from under her mattress to pay and host the Eurovision Song Contest. And let's face it, with a referendum coming up, perhaps maybe late 2023, that would be, again, another political involvement.
If the BBC are to make a decision, the decision will have to come from London, surely, and not from BBC Scotland, because if you look at the Eurovision Song Contest, it's the United Kingdom that is actually, participating, and not, say, Scotland. Surely the final decision would have to come from London.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm sure that Nicola would want to sort of get involved and say, well, okay, well, you know, we can put some money up from the Scottish government. She would want to be there or thereabouts. The thing is, it's almost a week since the EBU put out that statement to say that they were in talks with the BBC. Now, the BBC have said absolutely nothing. They've kept really tight-lipped. The P&J Arena here in Aberdeen, which has put in an unofficial bid for the contest next year, have said publicly that they're not wanting to discuss anything until it's actually signed on the dotted line that the UK will stage the contest. So they're keeping very quiet as well.
But why is it taking so long for the BBC to make a decision? Because, you know, they've got the infrastructure, they've got the arenas.
That I do not know.
Does that not worry you, though? Does that not worry you?
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah. It worries me, the fact that because they're taking so long, they might turn around and say no. Maybe they're being influenced by the government. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? But yeah, I'm very concerned that they haven't come out and said, yes, we're going to stage it. Because of the fact that they've said nothing, I mean, what are they actually doing?
Well, that brings me on to a slightly different topic then, but it's all relevant. The UK is seen as one of the big five. Surely, if they turn around and say, oh, no, we can't host it next year, and they're going to have to come up with an excuse, and the only excuse I can find is they won't have the funds, that is going to make a mockery of them being surely one of the big five.
Well, if they won it, they couldn't turn around and say we don't want to stage it, because obviously then they would still have to stage it. So I think if they're going to say no, they're going to play the, we don't want to upset our friends in the Ukraine sort of card. And that's maybe their get out of jail free, I think. They won't use the fact that they don't have the money. It'll just be, we think the Ukraine should stage it and we don't want to step on their toes.
This thing about the UK hosting has really excited a lot of Eurovision fans in the UK. I mean, it's talked about on all the social media. This decision would be, in my opinion, a huge disaster PR-wise for the BBC. But I also think that a lot of the blame will be pointed in the direction of Boris Johnson, and because of that statement that he made last week.
Well, yeah, I know. As soon as it was announced that the UK could possibly stage it, there was probably thousands of Eurovision fans across the United Kingdom thinking that Christmas had came early. You know, I was for one. You know, I probably haven't slept properly for the last week, just thinking, you know, where we're going to have the Eurovillage, who's going to host, what's the interval act going to be, and I'm sure the rest of the fans are exactly the same. And it's like saying Santa will be coming tonight. Oh, by the way, Santa's not coming anymore.
Yeah.
And like, could you imagine how devastated we would be? There would be mass riots outside the BBC at number 10.
In your opinion, do you think the BBC will turn around and say they're going to host?
You know, I don't know. I'm sort of 50-50. But they need to make a decision one way or the other very, very soon.
With regards to, I think there was comments also being made by Poland. The Polish culture minister, unfortunately I don't have his name in front of me, he was also making comments as well that Ukraine should be hosting. These are silly comments, surely from politicians who don't know enough about the staging of this contest, which takes a year to do. What is your opinion? What is your viewpoint on Ukraine saying that they can host, then getting support from the likes of Boris Johnson and then also from Poland? Do you not agree that these statements are stupefying?
They're absolutely ridiculous, and they're from people who don't know anything about the Eurovision Song Contest. And again, it's the word political. They're just trying to gain political votes to be seen to be supporting Ukraine. Yeah, we can support Ukraine in different ways, but there is absolutely no way that they can have the Eurovision Song Contest in a war-torn country. Now, you've got to look back at this year's contest. There was only 500 accredited journalists allowed into the arena. I was actually one of the ones that wasn't allowed in. I did my things online. Now, that decision was made about 9 months before the contest. So you can see how well in advance that the EBU organised these things. And that's why they've come out now and says, right, it's not going to happen there, and let's start the ball rolling. No, it's ridiculous that they can say that they can have it. I mean, it's basically putting our lives at risk. It's like me being a taxi driver, having 4 pints of lager, and then going and picking up people and taking them on a night out into town. They'd be getting into my taxi with a risk that I could crash because I'm under the influence of alcohol. It's the same as that. We cannot go to a country that's at war. In fact, there was rumours way back, I think it was in 2005, when the Kiev first staged the Eurovision Song Contest, that there was actually some troops trying to storm the arena before one of the semi-finals. Now, I don't know how true that was, but I did read that when I was in Ukraine. So, we could be sitting there watching the contest, and who knows, Vladimir Putin could just send a couple of nukes across, and that's it. But no,
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing that gets me, is that the cities they're talking about are well within reach of these missiles from Putin. And we've no idea how this war is going to turn out. But at this precise moment, it's even NATO are saying this could go on for years. And I just don't. I do understand the Ukrainians, because they're heartfelt. They are just desperate for their country to still be seen as a country in itself on the international stage. But I do not understand the ridiculous comments coming from politicians who don't have the first idea about how to stage a contest. This contest goes on for a week now. It's not just staged on a night. And I think that Boris Johnson in himself is thinking this is something that can be arranged a month in advance. It's a week-long event, and it's huge for any city that wants to host the thing. I mean, you've been to them. You've seen the change over the last 28 years. I mean, it's become a huge event, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it basically lasts almost, I would say, for 4 weeks. Because obviously, 6 weeks, you need to get into the arena 6 weeks before to set it up. And then you've got stand-in rehearsals, where you get volunteers to come and stand on stage where they do the camera work. And then 2 weeks before they start the actual rehearsals itself. So yes, it's a huge thing. And that's something that we're going to bring up when we speak about the host cities.
Well, we're going to bring that up now, because let's just talk about the funding of this, because obviously within a few hours as well of the EBU statement, a whole host of cities came out and said, "Oh, we'll host it," and I think we've got everybody from the likes of Barnsley to Sheffield to Wolverhampton. London are not involved, believe it or not. Manchester, Birmingham, Edinburgh, Glasgow, who are the favourites, and of course Aberdeen. The funding of this, surely part of the funding is also by the local council, or is everything paid for by, say, the BBC? How does it all work? Do you know?
I don't actually know, but I would think that the council would have to fork out. I mean, let's just go for the obvious things. Putting banners and flags up on the main squares in the city that's hosting, that's going to cost money. They're going to have to pay for transport to make sure that the public can get back and forth. So yeah, a lot of money will come from the local council. The BBC will obviously pay for what's going on inside the arena, I would imagine. But this thing takes a lot out of the budget, and I think that they would need to get sponsorship. Now, the other thing I was going to bring up was that let's just say Birmingham, for instance. Now, they've thrown their hat in the ring. Now, the last time it was staged in Birmingham was 1998, and that was in the days when we just had the one show. We didn't have the two semi-finals, and rehearsals started 3 days before, and it was very easy. But now you've got 2 weeks, and you've got like 20 to 30,000 fans, delegates, press converging on the city. Now, I don't think that these cities have actually sat down and thought, oh, wait a minute, it's not just something that's going to last for 48 hours, it's going to last for 2 weeks. And that would put a lot of pressure on the infrastructure, the transport, and all sorts of things. Now, this brings me to the point of Aberdeen.
Oh, you beat me to it.
We have staged offshore Europe biannually since 1985. Now, that attracts 38,000 visitors over almost 6 days to the city. So we're used to having a huge influx of people flying in, staying at hotels, transport back and forth to the arena. So we know what it's like when we get a huge chunk of human beings coming into the city. Whereas these other cities, they haven't staged anything on that scale at all. The other thing I joked and laughed about was Wolverhampton. They mentioned Wolverhampton football stadium, Molineux. Now, it doesn't have a roof. So
right.
goodbye, Wolverhampton. You won't be coming anywhere near the Eurovision Song Contest.
Well, let's talk about the Aberdeen, because apparently I'm reading that the actual council are meeting, I think today or at some point this week, to discuss a bid to host the Eurovision Song Contest. Some people actually think this is a bit of a joke bid, but I want you to kind of talk this city up, because it's not just a silly little city in the northeast of Scotland. I mean, this is an oil-rich city and it has good infrastructure. It's not a silly bid, is it?
It's not a silly bid at all. In fact, I can probably put money on the table to say that when the BBC decides to whittle it down to a top 5, Aberdeen will be there or thereabouts. No, it's not a silly bid. We do have the infrastructure. I know that, as I said earlier on in this conversation, that the P&G Arena haven't said that they will officially put in a bid. I know that there was a letter sent from local MSPs. I think Kevin Stewart was one of them. I've actually had an email back from Kevin saying, we could get together and have a chat if there's anything needed in the future. I know that they're all for it, but the P&G are waiting to see if it's yes or no from the government. Now, I did an interview on local television just the other day, and we did interview some people in the street. Again, 50% said, yes, it's great, let's bring the Eurovision Song Contest here. 50% said, oh, no, I don't think we want to have the Eurovision Song Contest here. But I think these are the people who have got no idea what the Eurovision Song Contest brings. Now, definitely, the local council here are 100% behind the bid, and they want it to come here. Now, let's just look at the evidence. We've got a 15,000 arena that was actually built for things like this. In the arena, we not only do we have the spectacular concert venue, but we've also got some exhibition halls. Now, that would be ideal for the press conference centre, the press workstation centre for the 2,000 press that will be accredited here. We've also got to find space for 40 changing rooms for the 40 delegations. Now, that could all be under one roof. We've got excellent transport links. There's a bus that leaves every 20 minutes from the main station in Aberdeen direct to the conference centre and then on to the airport. And I think the other thing that I think could be in our advantage, and I mentioned this in my interview, is that the Song Contest was invented to unite people in music and song after the Second World War. Now, it's quite easy to unite people in a smaller city than in a larger city. Now, you take London or Manchester or Birmingham, for instance. Now, that is absolutely huge. Now, I've been to cities across Europe that's hosted the Eurovision Song Contest, and some of the locals didn't even know that the contest was taking place in their city because it's just far too big. Now, Aberdeen is small. We can converge everything in the city centre and we can get the whole city involved. Now, we've got Union Terrace Gardens, which is just newly opening very soon. That could be Eurovillage. Eurovillage 2, we could have in the Duthie Park. The opening ceremony, well, we can either have that at Balmoral Castle, which I've said, or outside Marischal College, or in Old Aberdeen. So we've got the 3 venues there for the opening ceremony. Hotels, we've got plenty of hotels. We've got 15 hotels that are less than a 10-minute drive from the arena. Mm-hmm. Now, my point here is that, if you've just flown in from Australia or Azerbaijan, you don't want to spend another hour on a bus going back and forth to the arena. So that's another advantage. You're on the bus, you're at the arena within 10, 15 minutes, you do your rehearsals, you're back home with your feet up again in your hotel room.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that because I'm actually from the west coast of Scotland, which is, I'm from Ayr. And I moved to Aberdeenshire, Stonehaven, and to work in Aberdeen in 2009. And the other thing that's very striking about living up here is that it's absolutely gorgeous. It's steeped in history. There's so many different scenic places to go and film or visit and whatever. If it was staged in Glasgow, which I know enough about, it's very much a built-up city, isn't it? With Aberdeen, there's more open spaces, and yes, you're totally right. The transport links are very, very good. There's so many different opportunities in Aberdeen. So I wanted to kind of get a sort of like a flag waving here for the city? Because there's been a few people poo-pooing it and thinking, oh, no, not Aberdeen. And they actually hosted the BBC Sports Personality, didn't they, in the P&J 2 years ago?
2019, yeah. 2019,
yeah.
They staged that. So the BBC have been here already, and I think it went very, very well. I actually attended that event. So we had some celebrities coming up here. I mean, if you want to call Gary Lineker a celebrity, I don't know, but so the BBC know what we can do here. And just as a foot point, I was speaking to somebody the other day whose friend is a professional photographer for the music business. Now, the script, apparently if you're 18 or 19-year-old, you're a big fan of the script. I've heard of them. They were playing in Aberdeen a couple of weeks ago, and he was backstage taking some pictures, and he said at the time that this is probably one of the best arenas and venues that he's ever actually been in to do his work. And this is a guy from London. So, he's a professional photographer, and he's been all over the world taking photographs in these arenas. So, he was very impressed.
And obviously, one of the things that's I think has been talked about is that, and I think the EBU actually did say that it is our full intention that Ukraine's win will be reflected in next year's shows. So in other words, Ukraine would have to be involved in the preparation. They are the defending champions, obviously. How do you think this would look on the night?
I think, we have to have Ukraine involved, because obviously it is the Ukrainian song contest. My first thought was, would Ukraine automatically qualify for the final?
Well, they must do, surely.
I would think they would qualify. So we're looking at 6 in the final anyway. So we've got the big 5 plus the Ukraine. Whether or not we have a Ukrainian presenter, I don't know. I wouldn't be for that, but we certainly would have a lot of references to Ukraine. I don't know how they would do it. Perhaps that's one of the things that's maybe holding up the yes/no decision by the BBC, because maybe they're having discussions with the Ukrainians to say, well, how do you want? Because obviously the BBC can't just say, we'll stage it and we'll just do it our way. They obviously want to get the Ukrainians in and say, you can do it your way. Now, what I suggested, and this could really be a big feather in Aberdeen's cap, is that we invite the president of Ukraine and the delegations, and we take them out to Balmoral Castle for dinner, because that, I'm sure everybody would love to see where Queen Elizabeth spends her summer holidays. That we would obviously have to get permission from the Queen, first of all. But I think that, the Ukrainians would love to go to Balmoral Castle.
Yeah, there's an opportunity here, definitely, for the UK to definitely put on a great show with the support of the Ukrainians. However, I do think that Ukraine have got to concentrate on their own infrastructure and the rebuilding, as you said, of this country, than really get bogged down in wanting to host the contest, because I really do think that by constantly going on about it and making people feel guilty about it will alienate support. That's just my opinion. How do you want to wrap it up? Do you agree with that, or do you think that?
Well, I do. I think
goodwill has got to come. I mean, where does the goodwill end? That's basically what I'm saying. Where does the goodwill end? And we're giving them millions. We are supporting the Ukrainians. There's a real tightrope being walked here. This thing could turn into a third world war, and if that turns into a third world war, then there'll be none of us left. So yeah.
Well, I think again, it's the word politics. What we should have done is we should have separated the Eurovision Song Contest from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, we feel sorry for what's happening in Ukraine, but we should never have brought it. Now, I think the EBU made a huge mistake in actually letting the Ukrainians participate in this year's Eurovision Song Contest, because it just turned the whole thing into a farce. We knew that they were going to win, and now look what's happened. If we'd said to the Ukrainians, you can open the contest on grand final night, but unfortunately you won't be able to get any votes, and that would have been the end of that. And then they could have come back next year and started all over again. Now that they've won the contest and they're saying we want to stage it, it's not going to be impossible for the fact that the EBU is going to turn around and say, well, let's just cancel the Eurovision Song Contest 2023. We will not have it. So, that could possibly happen. And I don't think it's going to be fair for anyone.
Totally. Well, listen, Kevin, I could talk with you,
Yes.
because you speak so well, and you've been so helpful in this little podcast. But I'm going to have to end it, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I just want to say thanks very much. And
No,
let's
it's been a
see what
pleasure.
happens. Let's hope we can come back and talk when a decision has been made about where it's being hosted. And perhaps we'll be talking about Aberdeen being the host city. So, Kevin, thanks very much for joining me today.